Tonight's meeting will start with a public hearing. I don't expect this to take too long, and once the public hearing is closed, we will then hear public comment. I now call the council to order. Laura, can you please call the roll?
Councillor Elkins? Not present. Councillor
She's here. She just couldn't
Oh,
unmute.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
there she is.
Councillor Elkins? You know, I haven't made her a co-host yet. That's why. Let me see if I can adjust that. Here we go.
Here, hi. Sorry, I snuck in at the last minute. I'm here. Hello.
Councillor Foster,
Here.
Councillor Gore. I know I saw her. Here. Councillor Jarrett,
Here.
Councillor Labarge,
Here.
Councillor Maori,
Here.
Councillor Moulton,
Here.
Councillor Nash,
Here.
and Councillor Perry.
Here.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, now we'll get to our public hearing. First, we're going to have an announcement of a public hearing on item 22.196, National Grid Poll Petition for Sherman Avenue. Per Mass General Law, the Northampton City Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 5th at 7 p.m. on National Grid's petition to install one utility pole to provide service to 29 Sherman Avenue. Instructions for accessing the hearing may be found on the January 5th, 2023 council agenda, to be posted on www.northamptonma.gov no later than 48 hours prior to the meeting. The city council will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. Now to the public hearing for tonight. Public hearing on item 22.177, National Grid Poll Petition for Riverside Drive. This appears on our consent agenda, which we will be getting to after public comment. Per Mass General Law, the Northampton City Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 15th at 7 p.m. on National Grid's petition to install one utility pole to provide service to a new home at 297 Riverside Drive. The City Council will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon, and I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Labarge and seconded by Councillor Jarrett. Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Elkins.
I think she's still muted. Yeah.
Oh.
Hmm.
Here we go. Okay, should be able to unmute.
Give it a try, Marissa.
Okay, there we go. Yes.
Okay, Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Gore,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes,
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Moulton,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
and Councillor Perry.
Yes. Okay, the public hearing is now open. And first, it would be great if we could hear from Lisa. Is she here? Oh, there she is. All of these little boxes. Lisa, are you able to unmute? Here, let's see if we can. Did we just mute you again?
Thought I had made her a co-host.
There we go.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Lisa Jasinski with National Grid, just in support of the poll going in. It's just simply to provide service for a new home there. We've been back and forth with a DPW a bit, and I believe that we've come to an agreement about where the poll will go. And I think I saw Donna Lascella on the meeting as well. So I don't know if anybody from the DPW is going to speak, but we've come to a mutual agreement about where that pole is going to go.
Excellent. And I'm wondering if anybody, if Director LaScalia wants to speak as well. I've reviewed them in fact, with the help of Laura, that that we've noticed that there's been some changes since the original application, and that National Grid worked with DPW to adjust the plans, and that the plans as presented represent the changes that DPW recommended. Is that correct, Lisa?
Correct. And it's not really moving further up and down the street. It's just moving back into the towards the property.
Correct. Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to? Director LaScalia. Laura, can you unmute the director?
Of course. Let's see, goodness. There she is. Okay. Go. There we go.
Okay, hi, thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, Laura. Yep, good evening, everyone. Yeah, and as Lisa said, we've been back and forth quite a bit, and I certainly appreciate the cooperation from National Grid to get this pole in a place where it's not going to disrupt our utilities. You know, we always have to be careful. The right of way can be crowded sometimes. So again, just thanks to Lisa and the folks from National Grid for their flexibility and working with us so that we're confident that the pole can be set without any disturbance. So we're completely satisfied and have no issues with this. So thanks.
Thank you, Director. Is there other members of the public who would like to speak to this? If you could raise your virtual hand, or you can try waving at the screen and I'll see if I can pick you out. I'm not seeing anybody else. I believe this is in Councillor Jarrett's ward. I imagine Councillor Jarrett is fine with this moving forward, if you'd like to weigh in. Or
I know I reviewed it and it looks great.
okay. Okay. And seeing no other comments, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Moulton, seconded by Councillor Elkins. Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Foster,
Sorry, yes.
Councillor Gore,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
yes,
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Moulton,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
and Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, the poll petition or the public hearing has been closed, and that item is now on our consent agenda to be approved tonight. And next up, we will hear public comment. And if you want to make a public comment, you can start queuing up by raising your virtual hand. I have some words to say here. If you wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature located on the bottom menu bar under reactions. If you are calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. If you are having trouble raising your hand, you may use the chat feature to send a message to me and Councillor Foster through the chat. To ensure equal access, and because of open meeting law, technical problems such as not being able to raise your hand are the only thing the chat function is used for, and the chat function will only be available during public comment. We cannot accept comment over chat. Private chat or chat only visible on Zoom during a public meeting is antithetical to an open public process, in violation of the council rules for public participation and violates the spirit and potentially the law of open meeting law. If you want to submit a written public comment, please email it to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov, and it will be sent to all counselors and will be part of the public record. I will unmute each raised hand in the order raised to make a comment. Before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. To ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak, the council limits comments to 2 minutes. You are in no way obligated to use the full 2 minutes, but if you do, after 2 minutes, I will ask you to please finish your sentence. If you set your Zoom screen for gallery mode, you will see the blue sky timer indicating how much time each speaker has. According to the council rules, we do not respond during public comment as it is your time to speak. So while your comments should be directed to us, you will understand when we do not respond. Our rules also state that counselors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. Your protected speech is a constitutional right and one that we ask you to wield with consideration and respect for all, and do so with a recognition that the public space that grants you that freedom is shared equally by everyone. Also, according to open meeting law, if someone is disrupting a meeting, they may be removed. You may speak on any topic. It doesn't need to be an item on the agenda. I ask that all but the council turn off their video until called upon. Only the person recognized has the floor, and all comments are to be directed to the council. This meeting can also be watched on Channel 15 or by streaming on Northampton's Open Media's YouTube and other platforms. Okay. And now I look up and I see no raised hands. Okay, interesting. Oh. I see Caroline.
There's a raised hand from Dick Evans as well, like a actual raised hand.
Oh, thank you. All right.
You want me to go first, Counselor Nash?
Yeah, Caroline, you have the floor.
All right.
When you're ready. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Go.
Hi, everyone. I am Caroline Johnson, and I am a Florence resident, and I am also a public health professional in the area. I work for a local youth substance use prevention coalition, and I just want to thank Councilors Foster, Maori, and Labarge for introducing the ordinance to put a cap on the number of cannabis retail licenses, and to all of City Council in general for continuing to consider all of the implications of the adult use cannabis market on our town. And that's it.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure thing.
Okay. Next up, Dick Evans. Let's see. Hold on. Let's get you unmuted. Are you able to unmute?
How about now? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Are you ready to
Excellent.
go?
Thank you. I am. Thank you.
All right.
My name is Dick Evans. I live on 299 Birch Pit Road in Florence. I would like to speak also pertaining to the measure that is being introduced tonight to cap the number of marijuana shops. I think it's the wrong move at the wrong time and for the wrong reasons. For the principal reason, it's unnecessary. Today's paper brings the story of one shop closing, which demonstrates to us that market forces can be trusted to control the spread of cannabis dispensaries in this community and anywhere else. To its great credit, this council, after 2016, did not listen to the Chicken Littles who suggested that municipalities impose very tight restrictions on the industry. And I think a lot of municipalities that went that path are now regretting it. What we've seen here is that the market forces can be trusted to control the spread of shops. And I ask you to to respect that. And what is the problem to which this measure is the solution? That's never been identified. Are there lots of people getting sick from cannabis? Are we having accidents on the highways, on the roads? Is there carnage? Are there hordes of hippies, stoned hippies streaming down Main Street? We don't see any of these things. There's no reasons whatsoever for this measure, and it's an insult to this body that labored years ago to develop the rules we have now. Let me just point out, Mr. Chairman, that I know it's conventional, it's typical to refer such measures to a committee, but your rules do not require you to refer to committee, only allow you. If there was any occasion where a measure should be stopped in its tracks, the time is now. And I urge you not to refer it to committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. Well, I'm gonna look at my agenda here, and if somebody wants to raise their hand for one last. Okay. Okay. Public comment is over. We're now going to move on to announcements. Councilors and the mayor as well. Are there any announcements? Councilor Jarrett.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to let people know or remind folks that all of our local buses are free until the end of the year. That's thanks to state legislation. That's the PVTA in Hampshire and Hampton counties and the FRTA in Franklin County. So this is a good time to try out our local transit system. You can find information about schedules and such at pvta.com. And they are also part of an app that's called Transit, and that makes it easy to know the next bus from any location that you're at. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, councilors, any other announcements? Councilor Elkins.
Hello. So I just wanted to mention something that was and give a shout out and laud to Northampton residents who had a big moment this week. Heidi and Gina Norton Smith. Heidi is executive director of the Survival Center, and her wife, Gina Norton Smith, both were invited this week to Washington, D.C., where they introduced President Biden as he came in to make his remarks before signing the Respect for Marriage Act. And they were there in their role. They were there because they were one of the two of the named plaintiffs in the original Goodridge decision that made marriage for same-sex marriage legal in Massachusetts, the first time anywhere in the United States that happened. And I was just delighted. I encourage everybody. I think the city maybe put a notice out also or something out about this moment, but so incredibly proud of them, and I'm proud of our city and the role that this community played in that, and what a tremendous moment for them. You can go on YouTube and see the remarks. Both President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris mentioned them and spoke of them in their remarks. So anyway, check it out, y'all. It's really great. It was easily the best thing all week long for me. I mean, for me. So.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, any other announcements? Well, actually, I have one. I just want to thank Chris Mason for all of the work that he's done for the city. Any of our efforts around becoming more energy efficient, he's always been part of it, and I can't think of energy efficiency in Northampton without thinking of Mr. Mason, and I wish him all the best, and want to thank him for all of his work. And the other, I have a request for an announcement from Director Nardi relative to the letter that we all received about the PERIC retirement funds. And I'm wondering if Director Nardi, would you like to say a few words?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. So you all received a memo from the Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission, also known as PARAC. This listed the city's FY 2024 appropriation figure for our contributory retirement. This figure is based on an actuarial study, Every 2 years, the Northampton Retirement Board contracts a private actuarial firm to do this study. The study is based on a set of assumptions such as the valuation date, the investment of return, the interest rate, cost of living, and salary increases. And then the board itself chooses the schedule, and it's also based on what we feel the city can afford. So we just did that study. We send off the schedule that we choose to PARAC, and they actually look at it and approve it. So every 15th of December, PARAC has to send out an appropriation letter to each board and the cities that they fund to let them know what the approved amount is. So this is the letter that you received. So the amount that is listed, which is 7 million. I think the front of the letter is the entire appropriation, which includes the housing authority. But if the second page of it breaks it down, so the appropriation for the city of Northampton will be for FY 2024, $7,354,594. Currently, the retirement obligation is 76.4% funded, and based on this most recent actuarial study, we will be funded in 2 years earlier based on this schedule in 2035.
Thank you, Director. Okay, any other announcements? Counselor Elkins, your hand is still raised. She's all good. Oh, Counselor Perry.
Well, while we're here and 'tis the season, I am excited that First Night is happening again in Northampton. Buttons are on sale for a measly price of, I believe, $16 in advance for adults. Please go out and support the arts. As an artist and a connoisseur of arts, I know that the industry has been hurting, and there's been a lot of work put into bringing back this great event. I love First Night. I love Northampton. So go out and celebrate, and hopefully I'll see, well, I won't see anyone there really, because I'll be working, but go celebrate Northampton for me.
Thank you, Counselor. Mayor.
Can I just piggyback on that real quick, Counselor Perry, and say that, yes, please, everyone support First Night, but I also know that the Arts Council is looking for volunteers for First Night. I will be volunteering. I believe Director Nardi's volunteering. Actually, I think Chief of Staff Wolf is as well. So we're doing our part in City Hall. So any counselors or folks that you know who could help out and volunteer, I know that they would very much appreciate it. So I think you just go, there's a form on the arts, on the site for First Night. So just go ahead and do that. If you have any trouble, contact us and we will connect you.
Okay. Any more announcements? Seeing no hands raised, now we are on. We're going to do a little hopping around here at the request of the mayor. First, we're going to do the consent agenda. Then we're going to take up 2 ordinances that involve Director Mish, and then we'll get back on track with our financial orders. First, the consent agenda. We have 2 items here. We have the December 1st, 2022 minutes, and we have the item which we discussed during the public hearing, 22.177 National Grid poll petition for Riverside Drive. Are there any requests for removals? Hearing and seeing none. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Elkins and I think seconded by Counselor Moulton, does that sound right? Okay, there's no discussion on the consent agenda. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
and Counselor Foster.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda has been approved. And now I'm going to have us hop down to item. Where'd we go? Ordinances. 22.191, an ordinance relative to parking on Main Street in Leeds. This is at council for second reading. It's been referred to legislative matters. It's back here with a positive recommendation for approval. Let's see. It's pretty straightforward. This has to do with Councilor Mayor, do you want to describe it or? I mean, I could, she's trying to unmute. There we go.
Yes. Describe it.
Yeah, so so this is to have us go to the original recommendation that came out of the TPC about a year and a half ago to have seasonal parking. And that what's currently on the books is and was approved back in June 2021 was to make the parking changes, but not have the seasonal aspect to it.
Right.
So would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood your parameters for what I should. Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of feedback since the parking restrictions have been put in place from especially renters and those without driveways on Main Street about the parking situation and the undue burden to the renters on that street. We chose we had a long conversation about what side of the street to impose the parking restriction, which was based on a safety analysis by the Director Lascalia. And the river side of the street has 10 more parking spaces. So we chose that one. And also we also figured it would be a little bit less of an interruption to residents because folks were sometimes visitors were parking slightly in their driveways on the resident side of the street. So that side of the street's being used, but that side of the street has a lot of issues. It has drainage problems. It's got tree branch issues, and the director's been very responsive. The DPW has done what it can and put in rocks and drainage. But what's happening is residents who have to park on the street are having constant dampness, and in the winter kind of ice skating rinks and dangers, and it's not very physically accessible physically. So it seems to have this parking restriction be year round seems excessive to me and unfair. It's kind of a real-time equity issue because it really affects mostly renters on the street. And so I've been in conversation with them and they asked me to bring this forward. So that's the safety issues were about the crowds in the summer. And I'm also thinking that it's something we should review and routinely to see if if the safety issues remain or not, because there are some drawbacks to having the parking restriction. But in any case, so I think the least we can do to kind of slightly alleviate this burden is to go back to the original ordinance as it was written and have the restrictions be seasonal, which would allow residents and visitors to park on both sides of the street when it's off season, when there's not the crowds that are making it, adding to the danger. So that's why it's here.
Thank you. Counselors, any other discussion on this? Well, this is back here for approval, and I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Seconded.
Okay, motion to approve was made by Counselor Maori and seconded by Counselor Labarge.
Yeah.
Okay, and any discussion? I just want to say, I see Selena is here, and Selena, I see her hand is raised, but we don't allow comment during the council meeting. But I want to thank you for the comments you shared during the legislative matters meeting. So, okay, so counselors, hearing no further discussion, Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
and Counselor Gore.
Yes.
Okay, item 22.191, an ordinance relative to parking on Main Street has been approved. Next, item 22.204, an ordinance to amend chapter 281 stormwater management. This item was referred to legislative matters. It's back here with a positive recommendation. And I believe Director Lascalia is here to speak to it.
Yep. Hi, thanks, Councillor. Yep, I appreciate the opportunity to have spoken in more detail about this at Legislative Matters on Monday, and then of course the last council meeting. I'm happy to take questions if there are any further questions. But I think we've had good discussion around this, and I appreciate the council's attention to it. So thanks.
Well, I have a question for the director, and also I guess it's for Councillor Jarrett as well as the chair of Legislative Matters. There was some back and forth around a public hearing, and that do we have a resolution on how we're going to proceed on that? I know that the director at Legislative Matters was saying that that she'd be happy to commit to doing a public hearing, and that per the ordinance, it's actually up to the Stormwater Authority. And there was just the back and forth is, should we require that before we approve it?
Right.
Councillor Jarrett, your thoughts?
Sure, yeah, thanks. So Attorney Seawald has given us an opinion about, so that looking at it is his email. So as currently drafted, the ordinance would not require a public hearing for the DPW to promulgate regulations in the first instance. The public has had or will have the opportunity to weigh in on the proposed regulations through the public comment at City Council and of course at Legislative Matters. Any amendments to those regulations will not involve the City Council, and the public will not have a similar opportunity. So that's the reasoning behind why it's required when there are future changes, but not required for the first instance here. Because, and I agree with Attorney Seawald that these have been on the agenda, both the proposed regulations as well as the change to the ordinance. So I personally don't think that an additional public hearing is required now, but I'm open to hearing other councilors' thoughts.
Well, I'll weigh in. I think this item was presented 2 weeks ago. The director presented a lot of detail at that time. Legislative Matters met last week, and again, we had a very thorough discussion of this. It's part of the open public process, and so the public's had lots of opportunities. I've also, through people I've known, been putting the word out that these stormwater changes are on the way to different companies that deal with projects that might be an acre or more. And that my sense is that there's not a lot of concern as that these regulations are pretty much expected and standardized, and that we're basically codifying what we're required to do. So yeah, so I'm comfortable with the amount of outreach that we've done.
Yeah.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I was just going to agree as well and say, I think more than a public hearing, we just all need to make sure folks casually have the right information about this, because we know there's other issues around stormwater fees. And so I think the public outreach that needs to be done is us kind of letting folks know what this is actually about, and not and so that's the only thing I would say about that. But I agree that I feel like we've had due process here for the public, and so our job going forward is just simply to separate it from the stormwater residential fee issue.
Right.
Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. I have to say that our director, Donna Liscaya, did a thorough job communicating the changes of the language. The first time I attended Legislative Matters, and she did what we asked. She did do a breakdown of the language changes for us, and I appreciate that, Director Donna Liscaya. That was very helpful. And I agree. I definitely feel that there was an opportunity for the public to attend Legislative Matters and listen to what was being presented. So I agree with Alan Seawald also on the email that we received from our council clerk, Laura Klutzer. So I just want to thank you, Donna, for really doing an excellent job of presenting this change in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Foster.
And just to go along with that, I agree. I think this was incredibly well presented and easily understood. And, I did reach out to Valley CDC and the community builders, both of which are building affordable housing that I've been working with in Ward 2 to make sure they were aware. And I don't know whether or not they followed up on their own, but I made them aware right after our last meeting. So they've had time to look into it.
Okay. So, any more questions for the director on this item? Okay, hearing none. This is here for approval tonight, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve the stormwater management ordinance.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Labarge and I think seconded by Councilor Elkins. I go by the way the little boxes light up. It helps.
I think you got it right.
But if somebody moves around, that also throws it off, so. Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Nash.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
And Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Okay, item 22.204, an ordinance to amend chapter 281 stormwater management has been approved. Now I'm going to take us back up to where we left off in the agenda with financial orders. First up here, we have item 22.206, in order to appropriate $2.9 million in free cash to stabilization, capital stabilization, and fiscal stabilization funds. Mayor and Director Nardi, would you like to speak to this?
Yes.
And explain why all of these words are so repetitive?
Yes, there's a lot of repetition in this, and also annual repetition. So a lot of these things are things that we see every year. First of all, let me start off by saying huge thanks and recognition to Finance Director Nardi and the finance team. You are seeing these because we have successfully closed out the books from FY22, and our undesignated fund balance, or free cash, was certified by the State Director of Accounts in the Division of Local Services. So we've got a bunch of orders for you today. We've got some, I think, exciting sort of announcements embedded in them. And you'll see that we've been busy in multiple areas, and I'm really excited to bring a bunch of these to you. So as a refresher, the undesignated fund balance consists of either excess revenues, so revenues that came in above projections, unused departmental budgets, often because of vacancies or retirements, and what was left in the fund from the previous prior year. So in addition this year to the undesignated fund balance, the ARPA lost revenue funds were certified that we have. So as we've discussed multiple times, we took $10 million in ARPA lost revenue from the general government for general government services, and for covering any COVID-19 expenses deemed ineligible by FEMA. So this was the recommended path that most communities took, because revenue loss funds are by far the most inclusive category and allow for the greatest flexibility of use for ARPA funds. So the council has already approved the use of these funds for, you'll remember the fire rescue ladder truck, you're going to see this later on, that was in the capital improvement plan. Now that those funds have been certified, it's back in front of us again, and we can rescind the borrowing for that truck and allocate these certified funds for it. So that's an example that you've already seen before, that now that it's certified is on the agenda. So by using lost revenue for that particular example, we did not need to borrow for the truck, which will save about $150,000, which would have been the interest for borrowing. So we're going to go through about all of these orders tonight. And you'll see that there are a few other, I think, important steps towards key initiatives that we are going to talk about and utilize these funds for. So this first order that we have is the appropriation to reserves. So this is the annual appropriation of the undesignated fund balance to the stabilization accounts. According to our free cash policy, the city shall use 1/3 of free cash for reserves. This order is based on that policy. So it's taking 1/3 of free cash and dividing it between the 3 stabilization funds equally: capital stabilization, and fiscal stability stabilization. There's that repetition. So that is what this order is about, and sort of the first thing we're kicking off with our undesignated fund balance.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Jarrett.
Thank you. I wonder if you could explain what the total free cash is that we have presently. It sounds like it's about $9 million, but I'm just trying to understand what was the free cash that was carried over from past year, and then we had that 10 million from ARPA. How is that all working?
So there's the 10 million from ARPA, and then the free cash was certified at $8,758,111. You're right, almost. I think you said almost 9 million. So that's what free cash was certified on, and then you have the 10 million lost revenue. To answer your question of what remained and was held until it could be recertified. I will have to see if Director, she just turned on her camera. Director Nardi, do you have in front of you what it was before the additional free cash was added to it?
So no, I apologize. I have been unable to get into Vanguard to look at my spreadsheet, which I had left up on my screen. So I don't have that number, but we had left, I would say there was about $2 million left in free cash at the end of the year, as of June 30th.
So that was money that was from the previous fiscal year that we hadn't spent. Okay, so then
June 30th, it gets frozen until free cash gets certified again.
right. Okay, so then we added an additional about 7 million from this past fiscal year. So 7 plus 2, and then we have 10. So the total balance would be somewhere around almost 19 million.
If you add the lost revenue to this.
Right. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, counselors, any other questions? Well, I will say that, yeah, this is something we do every year, and that we designate funds to these various stabilization funds, and they're what helps keep the city fiscally healthy and sound. So, Councilor Labarge.
Yes, I want to thank the mayor for doing such a good description on breaking down the capital and the stabilization and the physical stability, which the mayor and I and Jim and whoever previous councilors.
Oh, Councilor Labarge, you got muted somehow.
I don't know how that happened, Mayor. But anyways, thank you, Mayor, for coming through here and explaining each one of the stabilization and the capital stabilization and the physical stabilization fund. And you and I and Jim and Bill, a bunch of us go through this every year. So thank you for doing what you did.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. Yes, you'll for the counselors that are closing out their first year, you'll see this is one of these annual times that we have where we go through a bunch of these orders like this. So welcome to your first time.
I'll make a motion to refer this to the consent agenda of our next meeting.
Second it.
You know, I think I heard Councilor Labarge, but I saw Councilor Perry's little green box light up. So,
Go ahead, it's okay.
okay, so motion made by Councilor Jarrett and seconded by Councilor Perry. And any discussion about sending this to the consent agenda? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
Councilor Gore, Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, that item has been sent to the consent agenda, and it will be on the consent agenda at our next meeting. Next up, item 22.207, in order to appropriate funds and authorize the acquisition of a building for a community resilience hub. This is in first reading. And Mayor, I know you are really excited to talk about this one.
I am, and I imagine this is one of the orders of most interest this evening. The timing worked out with the last council meeting that the bid opening was the day after the last council meeting. So the exciting news came out that I signed an option on behalf of the city to acquire the former First Baptist Church at 298 Main Street. I would have loved to have made that announcement at the council meeting, but I'm very, very happy to bring this order tonight. And Director Mish and I are excited to talk about what we hope will be a really huge step forward in realizing the Resilience Hub. So I believe the councilors are all very well familiar with the plans for the Resilience Hub, but I'll just do a little brief overview for anyone watching who's not familiar with the hope and sort of the envisioned program goals for the hub, which are that it would serve sort of 4 purposes. One, as a day center for our frontline vulnerable community members, providing lockers, showers, laundry, internet, connection with other people, sort of a place to be and be in community with others. Next purpose would be as a connection hub to services and support. So housing, food security, job seeking, healthcare, addiction recovery services, trauma recovery, legal assistance, all of these services that we would be aggregating in one space and aggregating those resources in one location where people could access them. Then a third purpose would be serving as a community space that everyone can access during open hours, with a community meeting space, a public forum space, hopefully exhibit and performance space, a building where everyone in the community could utilize and have it be part of their the places that they go to downtown. And then sort of a last purpose would be a crisis response space. So a flexible space that could be used in case of an environmental crisis or other emergency situations. So could be used for emergency shelter space, warming and cooling locations, things like that. So we believe that this particular building can serve those purposes and do it in a really beautiful and inviting place that people want to use and that reaffirms a feeling of belonging and dignity and community here. You know, an additional hope for a use that really evolved after the initial conception of the hub, and that we think that this building in particular will incorporate or integrate really well, is that with the transition from the health department to a Department of Health and Human Services, which includes a Department of Community Care, more space is needed for that department. And we had been looking for a space that could accommodate at least the DCC, but we believe that the other public health services and offices could also fit into this building. You know, emergency preparedness, substance use and prevention, public health nursing, things that all intersect nicely with the hub as well. So we are asking a lot of this space, but we think that this building fits the bill. Another thing that feels really positive about this acquisition is that this is repurposing a beautiful historic building that has remained empty for a very long time. You know, we've had lots of discussions on what we do with these buildings, especially churches, and we know how hard it can be to repurpose them. So the First Baptist Church joined with the First Congregational Church to create First Churches in 1988, and this building was purchased from First Churches in 1993 for development. So we all have our own touchstones for what 1993 means. For me, I can say my first year at Smith was 92, 93. So I was a first year, maybe a sophomore, when this building was bought, and it has remained empty and not utilized in all of that time. That feels like a very long time for me. So the really great news is that a lot of work has been done in this building over those years. It hasn't just sat with nothing being done. There have been huge amounts of improvements that are also really important and valuable for our project. So it is ready for a commercial kitchen. It is plumbed sufficiently for all of the uses that we need. So bathrooms, showers, laundry. It's also a really, the bones of it, it just needs to be finished. A lot of the really hard, expensive work is done. But you can already tell that it's just going to be this beautiful, inviting space. And which is just really important to me, that the people that are being served in there as a day center and anyone who uses that space will feel that sort of sense of beauty and dignity, and that they're being served in a place that has great care and cares for them. So this, another thing, it also has an elevator shaft, so it's almost fully accessible. There's only one section that's not accessible. Otherwise, the entire building is fully accessible. So a lot of the things that are really important, necessary, and expensive to add to an older building have already been done. So, so we're really excited to bring forward this order to you. So as you know, some funds have already been allocated for the purchase of a building for the hub from federal community development block grant funds. In 2020, the council authorized a gift account for the hub. And so that account now includes a $200,000 gift from Smith and about $53,000 in other gifts and donations as well. The cannabis mitigation funds that the city had collected before it stopped collecting mitigation funds have all been held in reserve for the hub. So there's already a good deal of funds that have been dedicated to this, and this order is the additional funding needed for the due diligence for this building that's being completed, and then the full acquisition of the building. So I just threw a whole lot at you. Director Mish is also can talk to you about this, but this is really, really, I can't tell you how meaningful it is for me, and it's a really exciting step forward for the city.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Mish, would you like to have the floor? Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I think there's so much that the mayor described about this process and this building and sort of the hopes and dreams. And I think all of us who have been working on this, not just in the city, but also our partners, our nonprofit partners, community action has been very much involved in this. And this goes back, you know, to early 2020 when we first started making these concerted efforts to develop a scheme of what this space could be. And I can't believe it's coming up on 3 years to the time that we initially started that. So I think everyone who's put so much time and effort, and of course, including and most importantly, the mayor's office, is really excited about this prospect. So you know, we're hoping that this you know, this moves very quickly. We have sort of a short timeline, and so we want to make sure that you know, we've asked to this funding allocation to close the gap for acquisition, and then we need to once we close, we'll also be seeking out funding to fit out the building, to finish the rest of the work for the interior. And we'll be seeking grants and other opportunities outside the city for that purpose. But this is this funding now will allow us to meet our tight timelines of spring, May. In fact, there are federal distribution requirements through block grant that we have to spend the money that we've already set aside for COVID impacts. We have to spend those by May. So this is really important and critical that this move forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Labarge.
Yes, this is for the mayor. Mayor, reading and listening to what you were saying, that the city has received a signed option to purchase 298 Main Street. When you stated take it, can you explain that?
I'm sorry, when you said.
Right, you mentioned that the city has received a signed option to purchase 298. Okay, the former Baptist church, or take it. When you say take it, do you mean by eminent domain?
That's part of the option. It would still be for the same amount.
Okay, all right.
Which is what it was appraised at.
Oh, okay. But anyways, I'm gonna say how I feel about this. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. Mayor, even David Narkowitz, I mean, community action, and the city of Northampton, the residents living here, we're very vocal about a community care area. But I have to say, I do support this financial order, which is in dire need to build a resilience hub as a community day center, which will help to serve Northampton at-risk population, and especially to support residents facing chronic and acute stress due to the climate change. And those words hit you right in the heart, because I know some people who have been affected by that. I've also social economic challenges and the homeless, and to support those living in poverty in the entire city. And those are absolutely the language that this is what this is all about. And I will support this 100%.
Thank you, Councillor.
You're welcome.
Other thoughts, questions? Councillor Perry.
Thank you. I'm not one to often pat ourselves on the back, but I feel like this does deserve, a quick golf clap for the mayor and Alan and Carolyn and everyone for, working so hard and diligently. I know it has been a long struggle. We looked at a lot of places. I'm excited that it's in my ward. And I am glad that this building is going to use finally. There's been a lot of talk about it being used for entertainment and other purposes, and I honestly think that this is the best use for that space. And I look forward to what it brings to our city. So thank you.
Councillor Maori, and Councillor Maori, and then Councillor Labarge again.
Yeah. Yes, it's very exciting. We've just already been through, the idea of kind of bringing new energy and preserving the building itself as well, besides our need that we've had for years, is really poetic. I just had a question about, that's a tight corner with traffic, and I know the service providers are going to be coming in and out. I assumed that there was some conversation with Chief Casper or Director Lascalia about, kind of pedestrian, bike, and vehicular traffic around there. Or is there parking there? Is there parking in the back? No, there isn't. Okay.
That's
just
one,
curious.
this building has
Yeah.
very little parking, but it is very near the Roundhouse lot. There's also the Smith Garage that can be used certain times, and Forbes after hours. So it's what it had. We are envisioning the spaces, the few spaces it has will likely be for Department of Community Care response vehicles.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's in a very walkable place. Hopefully we'll also have some bike racks, and of course it will be a wheelchair accessible. So that's great. Thank you. That was my question.
I'm going to go to Director Mish and then to Councillor Labarge.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to add to that, we assumed throughout all of our searching that because we wanted to be downtown, that there wouldn't necessarily be a lot of designated parking for this use. We wanted it to be walkable and accessible for a lot of people. So there are, so the parking is definitely limited to probably just the, sort of more acute responders vehicles. But to answer to the question about pedestrian and vehicular improvements in and around the site, the Picture Main Street project, which actually is also another one of these orders on here, extends up to this intersection, just beyond the West Street intersection. So in fact, in that project, there will be significant improvements and upgrades to the space allocated for bicycles and pedestrians in this section of Main Street, sort of leading down into downtown.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Now, Councillor Labarge.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to move this order to the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Labarge and seconded by Councillor Moulton to send this to the consent agenda. Councillor Jarrett.
Thank you. I just had another question. This is great. I'm so excited that this is moving along. Thanks for detailing the condition of the church and the appraised value, and just to understand that we're getting a church that's actually in good condition. It's not like buying a rundown church, because the work has been done to get it fixed up. So that is great to hear. I have heard from some of my constituents concerns around that we are taking on a regional problem that is perhaps too much for us. And I'm so glad that we are leading the way here, and that I think this is absolutely necessary. But just hearing concerns that the state should be taking this on, or that together with other communities we should be working on it, so that Northampton is not overly burdened. And I wonder if you can address or think about that with me. I know that we have Community Action, which is a regional organization that's working with us, and I'm sure there's other ways in which we are working regionally, getting regional support. And but I guess another question, how can we encourage other communities around us to also take on these issues?
Sure. So yeah, I would sort of push back on that maybe a couple different ways. One, I think some of these issues don't know boundaries, right? And you're right, we do have Community Action Pioneer Valley. We have a lot of partners in this who work regionally. And they provide, and we, sometimes we house things in Northampton that are utilized regionally, like I'm blanking on the name of the job bank, but that is sort of a regional thing that is at Forbes. So, all of our communities do this to a certain extent, but this building will serve a lot of purposes for Northampton and for our community. Again, it's called the Resilience Hub because it will be a crisis center for us, for the community, in the event of a climate crisis event or something like that. But it will serve, it will serve sort of individual needs, but also help address other needs that Northampton feels, right? So we have seen what happened during the pandemic when suddenly people didn't have places to go during the day. And one of the reasons we really kind of pushed forward quickly on the Resilience Hub was to create a day center where people could be in a safe, comfortable place during the day. That also has economic development benefits as well. So I think there are many ways that this will benefit Northampton, but also will benefit the region, and that can only help Northampton additionally. Amherst is also buying a building for sheltering. Other communities are, I think in the past couple of years, the region has really banded together, particularly around houseless issues, to work more cohesively as a region. So some municipalities that had never had shelters before, like Holyoke, now have one. Hadley is opening up some beds. So I think we are starting to work more as teams in this region in terms of trying to help some of our more vulnerable residents.
Great, thank you.
Carolyn,
Yeah,
I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Carolyn.
No, I don't. I think the other piece of it is we know, I mean, the process for getting to the place where we are is based on many different groups talking about how we as a community can address the issue. So there was before COVID, through the mayor's office, this panhandling report was issued where there was a recommendation that we do this to help businesses. I mean, the businesses wanted to be part of the solution. And so I think there has been a recognition that, you know, this, as the mayor said, that there aren't really geographic boundaries for where people want to be. And so we know that there are people in need in our community, and you know, we're not, the intention isn't to only serve people who can prove that they are from Northampton or have lived here. And I think that goal is really just to address the needs that we're seeing already in our downtown, and not make sure that the people who are most vulnerable have a place to go, and so that everyone can sort of work together cohesively on the solution.
Great, thank you both. Yeah, that'll help me frame my answers to people who have concerns, and I'm in full support.
I mean, we're a location where we're blessed to have these great agencies and services, right? And they do pull people from all around the area. So this is trying to bring them into one place where it's easier for people to access those services, but they're coming from elsewhere anyway.
Yeah.
So let's make it easier for everyone to get what they need.
Exactly.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes, I think it makes a lot of sense for Northampton to be taking the lead as a site for the Resilience Hub that will add to our community, serve many of the most vulnerable people in our community, as well as provide regional services. So I too applaud everyone who's been involved in this, and identifying a building that seems almost perfect for this site. My question is, I heard Director Mish mention a May deadline for expending some funds. Can the mayor outline as best she can at this point the timeline for completing the due diligence studies, and then other work to get this ready for occupancy?
Sure, and I'll lean on Carolyn a bit too, who's been working with Jones Whitsitt Architects, who are doing the due diligence. But we are deep into it at this point, and we are looking to move as fast as possible. And the seller is also looking to work with us to move as fast as possible.
Yeah, so specifically, you know, part of an important part of the due diligence included getting an appraisal done of the property, so that we could, you know, that would back up the option agreement. That's been completed. We also immediately engaged an environmental consulting firm to conduct an environmental site assessment. That has come back. And there are no issues, no environmental contamination, no need to go further in investigation on that part. So that's complete. We're currently, Jones Whitsitt Architects is doing a structural, mechanical, and code evaluation to understand what kinds of things we need to consider, and what those potential cost ramifications would be in construction for this building. And so that's well underway. And Jones Whitsitt is the one that did this conceptual space design for us for the hub. So they've been involved sort of from the very beginning. So they understand what our needs are. So they have that, they bring that lens in the evaluation of the mechanical and code review. So that's the bulk of what needs to be done, and so we're well towards meeting those deadlines. What will happen after we close on the property, which we hope, as long as we continue, achieving these steps along the way, that we hope we can close by end of April, I think, is sort of a target timeframe to think about. Once that happens, then we will begin the process of hiring a firm to actually do the design for the fit out, and we want to start on that as soon as possible. But construction is going to take another, I think could be well more than a year. So it may be that we finish portions of the building in phases, so that maybe part of the building can be occupied. And that's the other benefit of this building. The spaces can be divided in a way that is safe to be occupying one space, and while still working on another space. So that allows us some flexibility to really focus efforts on, for example, trying to focus efforts on getting the hub finished sooner than maybe the community space. And I'm just making that up. We haven't made any decisions about how that would go, but it's just to give you an idea that it will take a long time. Construction, typically for a building of this size takes a while, but we do have potential for dividing it up into phases so that things can come online at different times.
Thanks. That's helpful.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, first of all, the site is terrific, and I think the headline in the paper should have been the mayor staff solves riddle of the Sphinx. That that we're taking a building that's just been a big question mark in the community's mind is what's going to happen there, and then to go and take this idea of helping particularly our most vulnerable folks and blending the two together, and it's just like mind-bogglingly wonderful. So so kudos to the mayor and the mayor staff for pulling this off. I also want to say that I'm really proud that we're dedicating both our ARPA funds and a good chunk of a portion of our ARPA funds and a big chunk of our cannabis mitigation funds to this effort. That I think it's entirely appropriate that we're using, especially those mitigation funds, for helping vulnerable folks and many with substance abuse and addictions, and that this is completely appropriate. And the last thing I want to say is it's somebody who's been in human services for, I think it's over 30 years now. And I've had the opportunity of working with some individuals who've been on the houseless or here in Northampton. And I will say that the idea of having a place where the services can land is a really important thing, because all too often when somebody's asking for a service, you're saying, oh, that service. Well, you have to get on the bus to Greenfield, and you can go up there and you have to get on the phone to make an appointment, and you got to have a letter show up so that then you have the appointment and you qualify for their services. Or you're getting on the bus and going to Holyoke, and that for somebody, when you're in need of a job, of housing, of medical care, of any sort of support, having a place where there's a landing spot for all of these things to be is a really beautiful idea. That, that if the person's not there at the moment, you can say to somebody, go downstairs, have a cup of coffee, and around noontime, that person will be showing up. I mean, that's a really wonderful thing. And that's what I envision happening here, and that I'm hopeful that that we're pulling on all of the right threads here to pull this together. And yeah, this is really spectacular.
Thank you, Councillor Nash. And just, you know, some of the points you brought up make me really want to recognize former Mayor Narkowitz for his absolute vision for this project in general, and his vision for setting aside those cannabis funds that you referred to for this purpose, and his just sort of dogged pursuit of a building, which then I took over. And huge thanks to former Director Fiden and current Director Mish, who have just, I think, seen every building in downtown Northampton and pondered and just have not for 1 second given up on finding the perfect building, and worked so incredibly hard to get to this point. So I'm incredibly grateful to everyone's hard work on this, especially them.
And I just want to add former Mayor Higgins, with her agency ready to step into the fold here and also help on the service side. So it's all really terrific.
It's very fun to partner with her on this.
Yes. Councillor Gore. Oh, what happened? What happened?
Yeah. I think this is great. I think it seems like it's been a long time looking for a building for the Community Resilience Hub. And I'm really excited that this building was found. And just a follow-up question on the timeline. I know, you know, Massachusetts winters are rough, and I wonder if it's possible to like have the resilience part of the hub that kind of could shelter people. If first of all, is it going to be a shelter? And second of all, is that part that's like a day drop-in going to be available next winter, do you think?
So we are excited about this building, particularly because it can serve as an emergency shelter, but it would not be a regular shelter. But if we need sheltering sort of, you know, like during the pandemic, suddenly we needed to spread people out in shelters, and we went into the high school. If we suddenly had a situation like that, or we had a climate emergency where people were displaced and they needed shelter, it would be an emergency shelter. I don't know the answer to your other question about whether there's hope for next winter. I feel like it's too soon to be able to say that now, but you know, we are working with our usual partners on sheltering for the winter right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, councilors, I believe we have a motion on the floor to send this to the consent agenda. Isn't that correct, Laura? I see you nodding your head. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Moulton,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
Councillor Elkins,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Gore,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
and Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Okay, the item relative to the building of a community resilience hub has been, will be on the consent agenda at our next meeting. And Councillor Gore, I'm sorry I was interrupting you when you first started. My screen just went blank. I was like, I thought I'd been disconnected. It's because I didn't start swearing like, oh, I've been disconnected. All right. Okay, next up is item 22.208, in order to appropriate 1 million free cash for Picture Main Street design services. Mayor.
Okay, so this is another use of ARPA loss revenue and one that we've talked about a bit before, which is to cover costs that the city's obligated to pay for the Picture Main Street project. So the construction is being fully funded by Mass DOT, but there are certain costs that the city must cover, including design services and all of the underground utility work. So this is for some of these costs, and Carolyn can talk to you in detail about this as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we've started this design project for Picture Main Street, and it did, you know, we have a contract with an engineering firm, Tool Design, and that would take us through you know, up until the bidding process, at which point Mass DOT actually takes over the project. So I'll just back up just to remind folks that when there's a project that's on the Massachusetts Transportation Improvement Program, it's federally funded. So both, and then sometimes some state dollars, but it's federally funded for construction, but it requires the local governments to pay for the design for those improvements. And then once the design is ready, then the construction, the big bulk of the cost of construction is paid for by state and federal dollars. So we're still in the design phase, as everyone probably remembers. We're on the cusp of having what's referred to as the 25% design public hearing. And we're just waiting for Mass DOT to approve that. And then it becomes sort of their process where it's in this transition period where we follow their requirements, and then we need to, you know, take the steps that DOT sets up. So as part of this design process, it, as the mayor said, the design actually expanded to address essentially all the infrastructure, not just surface, but you know, water and sewer underground. So it's a full depth reconstruction now. So that's what's increased the design costs. And so the request is to use these funds to cover the increase in the amended contract that we have ready to sign with Tool for this amount. And that will carry us up to the point of advertising for construction. And we're still on path officially to be in the 2025 construction window.
Thank you. Councillor Jarrett.
Oh, thanks. I may have frozen for a minute. Another exciting project. And I was wondering about the underground utilities. Back when I was on the Energy and Sustainability Commission, the idea of having a district heating system was brought up. And I'm wondering if that there is thinking or if there will be design that will accommodate that as part of this.
Yes, that was brought up as through the public process. No, that is not part of the design. I mean, that in and of itself requires a different kind of engineering skill set. And the timing of that and the cost for that is different and outside the scope of this project. We also, I believe, investigated, and I don't have the accurate information. I'd be happy to get it to you after this meeting about sort of what steps were taken to investigate that. But we are looking at other opportunities to do ground source district heat outside of the road corridor, but in and around downtown.
And another thing I recall from back then, so it sounds like it's not feasible to do it now in the road corridor, but was to just leave room for potential future use. But it sounds like that is not necessarily, like in the tunnels, to leave room for potential future district heating use. But it sounds like that is not also possible as part of this reconstruction.
It's my correct. It's my understanding that you even need to do design for that, because you need to know what the capacity is, how much capacity you're building in, where would you put that? And there's already, from my understanding, that there's already tight competition for infrastructure. So again, that's sort of part of the design, another design element that is not part of this contract.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, counselors? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. It can go to the consent agenda or it can go to finance.
Move to send it to the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Perry and seconded by Counselor Moulton to send this item to the consent agenda for our next meeting. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins, okay, that was a yes. Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
and Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Okay. The item to appropriate $1 million in free cash for Picture Main Street design services will be seen on our consent agenda at our next meeting. Next up, item 22.209, in order to appropriate free cash to bike path bridge lights over Main Street.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Could I make a request for a quick 10-minute break? I have
Yes.
to step away for a moment.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, back at 8:43.
Gotcha.
Is the mayor still here? Next up, item 22.209, in order to appropriate free cash to bike path bridge lights over Main Street. And I believe, well, the mayor and Carolyn are here to speak to this.
Yes, so this is another really exciting project that we believe will have a really big impact and will help create a vibrant and inviting connection between the lower portion of Main Street, which now is being referred to as Paradise East, with the rest of Main Street. So a great deal of investment and energy has been put into that Paradise East area on the other side of the railway bridge by businesses and restaurants, 33 Hawley, Historic Northampton. And we're excited to try and draw people over there. So both Carolyn and actually Chief of Staff Alan Wolf have lots of other things to add about this really exciting project.
Cool. Carolyn and Alan, who wants to go first?
Alan can go. Well, I can start and Alan can kick in. I'll have the budget pieces. You know, we went through this design process to have a lighting designer determine, you know, the layout and the color scheme, and the construction costs came in much higher than we anticipated, that we even knew. And part of it is because we started this sort of, I guess, during COVID, and of course, everyone knows the prices have just escalated. So that's the request, is to fill that gap for the contract. And we've hired the contractor. They've started to mobilize in not a physical way, but sort of prepping, ordering the equipment, doing final sort of checking of the space to make sure everything's going to be in order for when those parts come in. And then the installation probably won't happen till next spring, like late spring, because of sort of the backlog and supply chain issues. But we're really excited for the project, and Chief of Staff Wolf has a lot of other great information about the whole process and the other sort of economic development piece that he's been working.
Yeah, I think this is hopefully not the first time most of you have heard of this, because this has been sort of on the table for about a year and a half now. You know, some of you will remember the local rapid recovery plan process that we did to sort of come up with great ideas for how to recover from the pandemic. And this one rose to near the top as a great idea to sort of, in the past, we've put art on the bridge, and this is sort of trying to turn the bridge itself into a work of art that is something that will attract people and become a real placemaking asset to the city of Northampton, in a spot that frankly is a little bit dark and dank right now. It sort of leaks and drips, and this is part of trying to improve that whole area by inviting as many people in the community to really enjoy it. And you can imagine sort of stepping off of Summer on Strong and turning the corner and seeing these beautiful lights underneath that bridge. You know, and this is something that's happening all across the country. This same company that we're working with lit the Bunker Hill Bridge in Boston. There's a bridge from Memphis that you know, they are crediting with foot traffic along their waterfront like never before. There was a Fast Company article I'll quote from that the Bay Lights, which first went up in 2013 and reopened permanently in 2016, has supported around 88 jobs and contributed 10 million to the area's gross domestic product, according to an academic study. Around 50 million people, tourists and residents alike, were estimated to have seen the Bay Lights, an additional boost in tourism around the lights. So if we got a fraction of that with our little bridge that we're lighting up, I think we would be super happy. And again, it's part of this whole effort to create the other side of the truck eating bridge in the Paradise East neighborhood, which you can sort of imagine is going to Joe's Pizza, to historic Northampton, and Hawley Street. And Hawley Folly Street and Historic Northampton are aggressively investing in improving their experience there. And we desperately want to tie the downtown experience to them. And so there's, in addition, so the bridge hopefully draws you in, you go in underneath it to see what's on the other side. And there are planters and benches and wayfinding that lead you to those other places. And we suddenly have extended downtown by a quarter mile and let all those businesses like the Roost and Joe's Pizza and the art galleries down there bask in the glow of what we experience all over our town. And I think that's mostly it. Hopefully, the guy that is the general manager, or at least was, of Color Kinetics, the company that we're working with. The reason you see cities taking on these displays is to draw attention, to create something meaningful and inspiring. The lights really do get people to come and look at the installation, which generates economic activity, and that sort of payback is why cities and people invest in them. And the other thing is that they're eco-friendly. They're LED lights. This is not going to be a giant pull on our city's electricity grid. And they last a long time, these lights that go up. So super excited for this project. I think it's the next big thing for our downtown to cement our economic recovery, continue to attract people from all over the region to come eat in our restaurants and shop in our stores.
As you can tell, we're pretty jazzed about this. And so if you haven't really paid attention, there are actually 3 bridges there. So there's the first bridge, which is the bridge. So if you're coming from City Hall and heading in that direction, the first bridge is the bridge we're talking about. And that is that bike path bridge. Then the next one is the one that the train actually goes on. And then after that is the truck eating part, which is really is meant to protect the other 2 bridges. And it does a great job. And so this would be lighting that first bridge. And I'll just tease that we're also working on plans and working with MassDOT to do some beautification on this next bridge. Because once you see how great this bridge is going to look, the railway bridge is going to look even shabbier, particularly when we light it up. So we've got some plans and are working with some ideas on maybe some public art, maybe a mural, and ways to beautify that as well.
That'd be great.
Councillor Jarrett.
Thanks. Yeah, I just took a look at Color Kinetics website, the company, and they have some amazing examples from around the world. So this is very exciting. I did have a question about will these get dimmer late at night? Is there, in terms of, not creating too much light for the area when it's not necessary? What is is it customizable in that way?
It's extremely customizable, and we can change, change different colors for different events. We can do sort of a wide range of customization. And correct me if I'm wrong, Carolyn or Alan, it can be, we could time it to do certain things, but then we can also do sort of special event things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If the Celtics are in the playoffs, it could be green. There things like that have been done all over the country. But yes, I don't think that we will have it at full wattage at 2 a.m. I don't think that anyone would want that.
Well, I just want to credit Robin Wynn for coming up with the term Paradise East during discussions. And it's like caught like wildfire. And but it came out of her mouth and everybody's just been like jumping on it. It's great. And as the counselor who this is in Ward 3, and I think it's a great project. One of the concerns that residents have talked about over the years, along with the businesses, is that it's a dark space to be traveling through at night, and to have it be a lively and an inviting space is such a cool idea, and it really ties Paradise East with downtown. This is really cool. So thanks for all the work on this.
I would move that
Go.
Sorry, not trying to get ahead of ourselves, but I
I was just about to ask, say it.
I move we put it on the consent agenda.
I
Second
second
it.
Wow, there's a lot of seconds. So Counselor Elkins makes the motion for the consent agenda. I think it was seconded by Counselor Jarrett.
Could have been.
No, he denies it. All right.
I did.
All right, Counselor Labarge. Okay, there we go. All right. Any more discussion about this item? Hearing none. Laura, roll calls, please.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor, excuse me, Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
and Counselor Nash.
Yes. Okay. That item will, the $1 million of free cash for appropriate free cash for a bike path bridge lights on Main Street. That'll be on our consent agenda for next at our next meeting in January. Next up, and Carolyn, I think you're done. Have a wonderful evening. Item 22.210, in order to appropriate free cash to purchase and install OpenGov. That sounds like software stuff. Mayor.
You are correct. That is software stuff. So this is for the purchase and installation of OpenGov. There have been about 5 years of research and process to get to this order tonight. So there's been a group researching this permitting and inspection software, which will allow us to do renewals for the first time for things like health inspections, liquor licenses, planning permits. Chief Information Officer Pagan is here and can speak to this, to the specifics of it. It will also allow departments to work better together, where things need to be done in a sequential order. They'll be able to see where other permits or licenses that pertain to a project are in a process. So this a lot to this, and I will hand it over to Antonio, who might need to be made. Can he unmute?
Yes, I'm here. Good night, everyone. Yeah, this is actually Mayor is more than 5 years.
Wow.
We started this process before my times, during the IT study that was done in 2013 and 14. And yes, we are trying to modernize the data processing for any permits and applications from either residents and business entities. And this is the second try. We did try before one other software that was not successful with the complicated process on planning and licensing. And we are after a lot of research, and we've been doing research for the last 3 years after the failure of the first attempt that we did. And this one is actually being used by about 100 municipalities in Massachusetts. And it's basically a software that is going to help building department, the mayor's office, and DPW to work with permits. And it has a potential to work with all the departments, but this is where we are starting right now. It's not a very expensive, but it's going to require a lot of time from all these department staff for the implementation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Counselor Jarrett.
Thank you. How will this integrate with our city's current website? And I know there's a way to find permits and such now. Will this become easier?
It would be a lot easier. Right now, what we have basically is an integration with our archive system where once the application is put there and is processed by the departments, then it can be researched by residents. This software is going to allow us to manage the whole protocol of permits from the standpoint of the department and from the standpoint of the resident or the business owner. So they will be able to start the process on the website, and then it will continue through the department. It's going to be a lot more user-friendly compared to what we have now. The implementation is going to be done on phases. So the first phase is to be working on the side of the department staff. So for example, planning, which is our first department that will be working together with mayor's office. They will be able to define the whole protocol and the whole workflow of the process. And then once everything is up and running there, then we will start the public face process. And I have to just say there are some applications that will require interaction before it goes to the website site, or some simple applications will be able to start from scratch on the website. So it's a very promising workflow that we are going to be starting. Is being successfully implemented on many municipalities. At least the demos that we have go to and the information we gathered from other municipalities that are using it is very positive. It definitely makes a big change on how we communicate with the residents.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I also add one bit that so a study of permitting processes for municipalities and their impact showed that efficient permitting process is one of the highest correlating activities a city can have for economic success from a list of about 30 influential factors. So it's really a key thing for economic development to have an efficient permitting process that is good for the user and really helps bolster your economic success for a city.
Mhm.
Move to refer this to the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Jarrett and seconded by Counselor Perry to move this to the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
and Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Okay, that item to appropriate free cash to purchase and install OpenGov will be on the consent agenda at our January meeting. Next up, item 22.211, in order to appropriate free cash for Northampton Fire Department software conversion. Mayor, I
Okay,
think I remember something about this when we got our tour, but
It's
go ahead.
true. I do remember, I think the chief did talk about this. So this is also very needed software for records management for fire rescue. And something that Antonio has also been working on and could talk in detail about if anyone has questions.
So this software, I have to credit my friend Chief Davin for being the one that recommended it. It is a software that is going to actually replace several software titles that we currently use on the fire department and rescue. They will be basically integrating several of the data processing software that we currently have. And again, this is a software that is going to automate some of the processes, and it goes to facilitate the way both the fire department and the public safety in total to work with, all the compliance with state reporting, ambulance billing, scheduling for firefighters, and so on. So it's going to be integrating. Right now, we do have at least 4 different software titles that we use for these functions, and they are going to be all integrated into one. And again, with the potential to continue integrating other portions of it. We have done a lot of research after it was recommended by the fire station leadership. And after doing our research, it came out definitely as the right solution. Is very inexpensive compared to what we are paying right now for all the titles that we have. And if everything goes into place, we are going to be implementing all the modules. We have 8 different modules to implement, and we will be able to get this up and running by the beginning of next fiscal year.
Wow.
Councillor Jarrett.
Thanks. Yeah, this also looks like a great product. I was just looking up First Due, and so it's a cloud-based software, which I'm sure works very well when you have internet access. Is there any concern about what happens if, I remember during the October snowstorm of 2011, there's a lot of internet went down. What will they still be able to use the services, or will they be back to just the radios at that point?
That's a very good question, actually. Yes, the number one, we are working on right now, and this is a project I've been working for the last 18 months or so, providing the city with a redundant internet access through different routes, which is hopefully be able to be completed by next year. This is not a capital project. This is more like an improving and a more efficient way of using the operating budget that we have. That will allow us to ensure that we have multiple entries of internet. So even if the region is suffering for some kind of outages, we will be able to have alternative routes to internet. Besides that, all this software have contingencies for the case that the internet is not available at the site, and we will be able to continue working without that, for a little bit. It's not something to be used for permanently or for weeks, but our contingency plans are to, in a case of a regional disaster, to be able to be up and running within hours.
Great, thank you for that forward thinking.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I have to say that in the last couple of years, we've been moving forward to more cloud-based applications and solutions, and therefore we are moving into better connectivity.
I move to refer to the consent agenda.
All right, motion made by Councillor Moulton and seconded by Councillor Labarge to send this to the consent agenda at our January 5th meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Gore,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Moulton,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
and Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, that item appropriating free cash for NFD software conversion has been referred to the consent agenda for our next meeting. Next up, item 22.212, in order to appropriate free cash for fire ladder truck. And also we have item 22.213 in order to rescind borrowing for ladder truck. I expect they're very much tied together and we might want to consider discussing them as a group. But anyway, Mayor.
They are tied together. So this is the ladder truck I mentioned earlier. For the counselors that were here in 21, in September 21, the council authorized the borrowing to order the ladder truck because our ladder truck became very unreliable and actually failed on occasions out on calls. And which is, as you can imagine, a pretty scary situation that has then required us since then to rely on mutual aid for a ladder for any calls needing one. So any calls that are above one floor, we need mutual aid to come from another community and bring their ladder truck. So the council authorized sort of emergency borrowing to purchase a new ladder truck. So like anything, we order something and it takes a very, very, very long time to get it. So we have ordered this truck. We still don't have it. We're still relying on mutual aid. We've managed to, the fire rescue, some of you might remember from that tour we took, has a truly remarkable mechanic. And he has managed to sort of jerry rig it, and it's been more successful, but it's not something that we feel confident. So we still always have mutual aid come with a ladder if needed. So this council will remember that you approved the use of ARPA loss revenue for the purchase of the ladder truck instead of borrowing in the capital improvement plan in the last late winter, late winter. So that was approved for a purchase using this revenue when it was certified. It's now been certified, so that's why this is now coming back to you. So this is to appropriate that lost revenue free cash for the truck, and then the next order is to rescind that borrowing that the council had approved because we no longer need to do it. And as I said earlier, by not borrowing, we're saving about $150,000 in interest over that time that we would have borrowed for this truck.
Counselors, any questions?
Move to refer 22.212 and 22.213 to the consent agenda of our next meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Jarrett, seconded by Counselor Elkins to move as a group 22.212 and 22.213. One is to appropriate free cash for the purchase of a fire truck. The other is to rescind the borrowing for the ladder truck. Mayor.
Can I just ask, I think there's a Scrivener's error on the rescinding the borrowing. It says it's order 21.322 on here. So if we could just correct that Scrivener's error and make it the correct order number, which I think, as Councilor Jarrett said, should be 213.
Oh,
what?
I'm looking at the order.
The actual, maybe I printed this is from the previous agenda. The one I'm looking at says order 21.322. If that's not what you have, then all's good.
I have 22.213.
Okay, then I printed out an earlier version and didn't, since nothing had changed on my end, I didn't print out a newer version.
It's still 1,990,656, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay, all good. Laura?
The order is referencing the earlier order passed in 2021 to approve the borrowing. So there are two different order numbers
That-
Um,
That makes a lot of sense because that's not the year we're in. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. This is the previous version before Laura had put the order number on it. So I was looking for an order number and it was the one for.
Got it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. Carry on.
Working as a group solves problems.
Sure does.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
and Counselor Foster.
Yes.
Okay, both those items will be on the consent agenda for our next meeting. Okay. Next up, item 22.214, in order to appropriate free cash for ambulance purchase. Mayor.
So, thank you. So some of you may remember that Hadley had wanted to purchase one of our retired ambulances. And poor Hadley had to wait a very long time because we had to wait a very long time to take receipt of the new ambulance. We have taken receipt of it and we were able to complete that deal with Hadley and they've reimbursed the city for the cost of the ambulance that we were selling to them, which is $20,000. So this order is to appropriate that $20,000 back to fire rescue for them to use towards the planning of our next planned ambulance purchase.
Okay.
Counselors.
I'll
Move
move
to
referral to the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, who made the motion?
I did.
Oh, Counselor Foster, yeah, I was. So motion made by Counselor Foster, seconded by Counselor Jarrett to move this item to the consent agenda at our next meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
and Counselor Gore.
Yes.
Okay. The order to appropriate free cash for ambulance purchase or from the ambulance purchase will be on our from Hadley will be on our next agenda in January. Next up, item 22.215, in order to appropriate free cash for Northampton Fire Department's Safe at Home program. Mayor.
Sorry, I was muted. Fire Rescue received a grant for to fund SAFE. SAFE stands for Student Awareness of Fire Education for older adults and a Safe at Home program, which are inspections. So they got this grant for FY23. This program has been so successful and popular that halfway through this fiscal year, they have exceeded the grant funding and there is still more demand from our older adults to be part of this program. So I hope the council will agree that being able to meet that demand and continue the educational and inspection programs for our older adults for $5,000 is a very worthwhile expenditure.
Okay. Counselors. We have this Zen moment while we think.
Councilor Labarge does have her hand up.
Oh, yes, Counselor Labarge.
Hi. I have to say that this safe home program is fantastic. I have used it for some of the older people I have on my ward. And when we just had our meeting at the fire station recently, all of us were invited to talk with the union president. I mentioned to him about quite a bit of elderly people in Ward 6. And we talked about the Safe Home program. They actually went into my residents' homes and they looked at their alarm systems and they put up new ones for them. They're fantastic. They check their house around for them and, oh, I will always support this. Our fire department does a wonderful job and they do. So I would like to move this on the consent agenda.
Second,
Okay, motion made by Councillor Labarge, seconded by Councillor Moulton to have this item placed on our consent agenda at the next meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Moulton,
yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
Councillor Elkins,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Gore,
Yes.
and Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Okay, that item will 22.215 will be on our next, the consent agenda at our next meeting. Next up, 22.216, in order to appropriate retained earnings to FY23 enterprise capital projects. And it looks like we're moving some money around here. Mayor and Director Nardi.
Actually, Director LaScalia is going to talk briefly about these enterprise expenditures.
Okay.
For many, if not all, projects that you saw and approved in the capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, hi, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so this is what we're doing here is we are sort of pre-funding next year's budget from the OOM side for all of the enterprise funds. So this is just kind of a standard thing that we do each year where we take retained earnings from the prior year. And what this allows is the maximum amount of flexibility when we build the enterprise budgets for next year, particularly in water and sewer, where we have unknown impacts from Coca-Cola leaving. So what we're doing is we're just taking the leftover money from last year that we didn't spend due to like vacancies or retirements or things costing less than we had anticipated. And we're just sort of preloading the budget for next year so that we have the maximum amount of flexibility, particularly for the larger capital budgets or for the larger capital projects rather, where we have sort of unknown cost variations and, we put things out to bid and they cost more than we had anticipated just due to sort of, factors beyond our control, like economic factors beyond our control. So that's kind of the executive summary of what we're doing and why. Happy to take questions if there are any on any of the specific orders.
Councillor Maori.
More about the budget, how this will be reflected in the budget book, so that when we go to look at that, I'll understand where this will be. So you're saying you're pre.
Right. So we're pre-funding many of these items. So what will happen is when we generate the enterprise budgets, let's just say in the water enterprise, depending on what we project our revenue to be, because we have to produce a balanced budget. Our expenditures have to equal our projected revenue. So with the impacts of Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola's departure being unknown at this time, we may actually have to back off on our revenue, which means we have to back off on our expenses. So if I have funded hydrants, for example, if I have that appropriation now, that's that much less money that we have to budget for when you see the budget in front of you. So what you will actually see, 4 months from now when you're reviewing the budget, is you will not see some of these items in the budget because they're already funded, or you will see them in the budget with a reduced rate.
Right. So that's how they'll be reflected in the budget, by what they might be saving.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Moulton.
Thank you. You mentioned hydrants, Director Lascalia, and that caught my eye. How many hydrants does $60,000 buy, and what is the process used to decide which hydrants are replaced when?
Hydrants are interestingly really good targets for vehicles. We get a lot of hit and runs, unbelievably, where we just have someone who hit the hydrant, destroyed it, and drove away. I mean, each hydrant can cost anywhere between $4,000 and $6,000, depending upon the parts you need and sort of the make and model. We go through a procurement process and we sign a contract with the vendor who gives us the most responsive bid. So obviously we have to have a stock on hand for any emergencies, but we also have an inventory of all of our hydrants. We try to replace the oldest ones as we make our way around the city, but understanding it's a huge expenditure and there's actually quite a bit of labor involved. So we do what we can to replace the old ones.
Thank you.
So Director Lascalia, so when we're talking about a hydrant, you're talking about the 30 inches above ground, or actually what goes down into the system? Is there more to a hydrant than we're imagining that's costing $4,000 to $6,000?
Yeah, there's a riser that actually taps into the service line below the hydrant, and then the associated connection parts with that. So there's a whole there's sort of a whole kit associated with the hydrant, most of which you can't see.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that when they're costing $4,000 to $6,000. There's more to it. And I had another question. Is it still looking like Coca-Cola is on track to be shutting down by June?
I think that Coca-Cola's operations are a little bit difficult to project. We monitor their usage on a month-by-month basis because we bill them monthly. At this point, I have not seen any sort of a scale from them. Their November usage was actually a little bit higher than their October usage was. So they've informed us of their plans to leave, and we just sort of take it a day at a time here. But they have been clear that their operations are going to ramp down. We were expecting it by the end of this month. So we've certainly been warned, and as we've discussed, it's going to be a big impact when it happens.
Right. Councilors, any other questions?
I'd move to put this on the consent agenda.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Elkins, seconded by Councilor Labarge to send this item to the consent agenda. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, in order to appropriate retained earnings to FY23 enterprise capital projects will be on the consent agenda at our next meeting. Item 22.217, in order to appropriate transportation infrastructure enhancement funds to hotel bridge improvements. Mayor.
Okay, so this is another yearly order. This is for the state assessment on transportation network companies. I've learned that means things like Uber and Lyft. So annually generated, this is annually generated based on the number of rides from the previous fiscal year that originated from our city at a per ride assessment of 20 cents a ride, and then divided by 2 with the state pocketing the other half. So we get to this number based on that formula, and the funds must be used to support municipal roads, bridges, and other transportation infrastructure. So this is the second year that we are putting these funds towards the hotel bridge.
Okay.
Yep.
Counselor Maori.
Yeah. Always excited to see any movement with the hotel bridge. You know, I'd love to, we can do it next time, do a brief update about that, because everyone in Leeds is very excited to have this kind of center part of Leeds bolstered like this. I think it's going to make a huge difference to kind of the community down there. We used to gather on that bridge. I've talked about that before, so I'm very grateful that you're appropriating this money for this. Yeah, I hope to hear more about what's going on with it. Thank you.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes, I support this, definitely. My husband has traveled over that bridge on a car, and his parents living on Water Street and everything, and I would like to make a motion to place this on the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Labarge and seconded by Counselor Perry to place this item on the consent agenda at our next meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
and Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Okay, in order to appropriate transportation infrastructure enhancement funds to hotel bridge improvements will be on the consent agenda at our next meeting. Next up, item 22.218, in order to appropriate free cash to NPS for McKinney-Vento transportation reimbursements. Mayor, we have talked about this for many years now.
Yes,
We will talk about it every year, because this
Yes.
is another annual order you will see at this time of year. And this comes from the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, which is a federal law, and it's designed to ensure that homeless children and youth have the same access as housed children to public education, including public preschool programs. So this is a federal reimbursement that we receive in the general fund and always pay forward to the Northampton Public Schools for transportation. So this is a reimbursement received in FY22, which became part of FY23 free cash. And it's reimbursement for students from FY21. So a little bit more if people want to know about McKinney-Vento. Massachusetts adopted this section of the act, which defines homeless children and youth as individuals who lack a quote, fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And this includes children who either share the housing of other persons due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or similar conditions, live in motels, hotels, trailers, or camping grounds due to a lack of alternative housing, live in shelters, have been abandoned in hospitals, have been placed out of their home into temporary, transitional, or emergency living placement, including STAR programs, and are awaiting a foster care placement. Children who live in cars, parks, public spaces, abandoned buildings, substandard housing, bus or train stations, or similar settings, and children that have been thrown out of their homes or have run away as a result that they're not in the physical as a result, they're not in the physical custody of a parent or a guardian, and are living in a shelter or on the street or with friends or relatives, or are moving around from place to place and couch surfing. This also includes migratory children who qualify as houseless because they live in any of the circumstances that I just went through above. So this is, as I said, an order you see every year, and it is hard, but we are grateful that there is reimbursement and that the feds and the state and us ensure that these children have equal access to education and these preschool programs by reimbursing this transportation.
Yeah, Mayor, I want to add that two things. First of all, I've worked with some students over the years who've required, transportation to stay in school. One of the most traumatizing things for a young person is to be disconnected from their school because of the family's living situation, and that by maintaining that connection with your school, with your class, with your friends, it's highly stabilizing, and it's terrific that our school system, along with others up and down the valley, all take advantage of this type of service. The other thing I want to add, and you could probably speak to this as well, is that the cost of this transportation, which we're being partially reimbursed for, that a big part of it is actually funded out of our school system budget. Isn't that correct?
Maybe Director Nardi can answer that. I know that this is the reimbursement we get from the federal government.
Right.
And we always make sure that it goes back into the transportation department of the schools to fund transportation.
Yeah, it's just been, I don't know, that the information I've had for years is that it's very expensive for school systems to provide this service. They spend a lot of money on transportation, and that for good reason, but at the same time, and that it tends to be the sending districts that are also carrying the bulk of the financial burden. So
I certainly wouldn't be surprised if this only covers some of the cost.
yeah. So anyway. Councillor Moulton.
Well, I certainly support this. My question, though, is the language in this ordinance 22218 underneath the title, the whereases and the now therefore be it ordered, is the exact same language as we just approved in 22217, and I'm wondering if that's a mistake.
I'll have to look. Again, I have an older version that I'd printed out that was what my office sent, but let me look.
Council upon a recommendation of transportation services.
At one point, the wrong text, the same text was in both orders, but I had swapped that out. That was brought to my attention, and it should. I wonder if you have an older version of the agenda you're looking at.
Yeah, mine doesn't say that.
I printed mine on Tuesday, so if it was
So it-
changed between then and now, then someone caught it
Yes,
earlier.
yes.
Okay.
Fortunately, Councilor Jarrett brought that to my attention
Great.
and I
Thank
changed.
you. Thank you, Councilor Jarrett.
You're such an overachiever, Counselor Moulton. Printing out on Tuesday, what could be printed out on Thursday.
I take that as that's instructive. Thank you.
I think it was a compliment, but
It was.
so, okay. Did we get a motion?
I'll make a motion to move it to the consent agenda then.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Perry, seconded by Counselor Gore to put this on the consent agenda at our next meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
and Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Okay, item 22.218 will be on the consent agenda at our next meeting. Next up, item 22.219, in order to appropriate $3 million free cash to establish climate change mitigation stabilization fund. Mayor,
Okay, we are
something new
closing-
and interesting.
It is. Yeah, we're closing out these orders in a big, and I hope you agree, exciting way by asking the council to authorize to establish a new stabilization fund using $3 million of ARPA lost revenue. This one being a climate change mitigation stabilization fund to continue to plan for costs to implement our climate resilience and regeneration plans, including design and strategic planning. So the city just worked with the Collins Center to combine all of our financial policies into one comprehensive document. And as part of that review, if approved by the council this evening, I'll be updating our free cash policy to include adding funds to this newly created stabilization fund. As noted earlier, our current policy takes 1/3 of our certified free cash and allocates it equally between the 3 current stabilization funds, capital, fiscal, and general. And in the future, we will add this stabilization fund to that allocation. I will also be working with Planning and Sustainability Director Mish, Central Services Director McCarthy, and other staff who are in the city now, and staff that will be key to working towards our sustainability goals to determine a policy for utilizing these funds. In the current capital improvement plan process, we may this year utilize more free cash and general stabilization funds to address the many climate change capital items that have been brought forward, but we're still in the middle of that process and the final funding figures haven't been determined yet. But I feel like this is an important step to create this stabilization fund in recognition of our commitment to the resilience and regeneration plan. And I also think that it is a practical and good fiscally responsible thing to utilize some of our ARPA loss revenue to make those plans a financial priority for the city.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is very exciting. When I first saw the agenda, I don't usually get excited about every agenda item, I will admit, but this one is, I'm thrilled to see this here. I just want to say from the get-go that I think establishing a new fund is something that should be referred to the Finance Committee, especially at this juncture. And also, I don't know if Director Mish is here, but I hope she's going to report this back to the Northampton Energy and Sustainability Commission, because I know they'll be thrilled as well.
Move referral to the Finance Committee.
Second.
I guess I could have done that, sorry. I like to talk
Got
about it.
Motion made by Councilor Foster, almost made by Councilor Maori, but seconded by
It was a
Counselor Moll.
tease. Kind of
To,
forgot to do that at the end.
Send this item to finance at its next meeting at a
Right.
date to be determined.
Yes, I believe it will be January 5th. But maybe we should say TBD.
Okay.
January 4th, excuse me.
All right. Any more question or discussions on this item? Okay. Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
and Counselor Nash.
Yes. Okay, item 22.219 will appear on the agenda of the next finance meeting and will be on our agenda for approval at our next meeting. So we've made it through our 14 financial orders. How's everybody doing?
Take a break for about 5 minutes.
You know, 5-minute break?
Yes.
Okay, 5-minute break, back at 9:50.
Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna get off and get on another device when I come back.
Okay,
on.
I'll make
Can
you a co-host again once
Yeah.
you return.
Please, thank you.
we have item 22.201, an ordinance limiting the number of retail cannabis establishments in the city of Northampton. This is here on first reading. Counselors, would you like me to read this, the sponsors, or would the sponsors like to read it? You know what, I think since it's coming before us tonight, it's good to read it. So item 22.201, an ordinance limiting the number of retail cannabis establishments in the city of Northampton, whereas the Commissioner of Northampton's Department of Health and Human Services has called for the city to institute an upper limit on the number of retail cannabis establishments in the city, whereas the pursuit of social equity is a core value consistently expressed by both our municipal government and community members. Now, therefore, it be ordained by City Council of the City of Northampton in City Council assembled as follows. Add the following to the Code of Ordinances in section to be determined. A, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, subsection 3. Oh boy, there shall be no more than 12 retail marijuana establishments in the city of Northampton. The limit shall not apply to marijuana establishments other than those operated by a marijuana retailer, as that term is defined in Mass General Law. The following shall be exempt from limitations set forth in this ordinance. 1, owner applicants who qualify as social equity candidates as defined by Cannabis Control Commission of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts shall be exempt from this ordinance. 2, this ordinance shall not apply to a retail establishment or a proposed retail establishment for which a lease agreement for Northampton property has been signed as of the effective date of this ordinance. And this is upon the recommendation of Councilors Karen Foster, Marianne Labarge, and Rachel Maori. And councilors, sponsors, would you like to speak to this? Councilor Maori.
Yeah, hi. So as you can tell, this is kind of a twofold ordinance. We're both trying to address the historic lack of social equity candidates in our city and who run cannabis retail, and also looking to cap the amount of retail. Just to be clear, this wouldn't, of course, encompass delivery or future consumption sites. Yeah, so trying to think what else to say about it. You know, I see this, I'll just say my motivation, someone had mentioned motivation. My motivation, one of my motivations is to support our local businesses. I've talked to many of our local cannabis retail owners, and they are very much in favor of a cap. They say it's a very, as we said, you know, when you look at the article on the business that we've just lost, what I see is an unhealthy market, and we support our businesses in so many ways. We have since the pandemic, especially. It's been a goal. I remember during, you know, our conversations, nuanced conversations about the plastic reduction ordinance, about how to, you know, how to kind of bring in businesses and how to kind of protect them and you know, and roll out what our city would like to roll out. So I think we've done that with other businesses, and so I'd like to see us do that with this one. It's certainly, you know, it's certainly very painful to go out of business, and what I'm hearing is that our local businesses would like would welcome a cap. And I think that, you know, our legal adults have reasonable and convenient access at this point. I'm certainly not anti-cannabis, but I think that we have reasonable access. We have businesses that are looking for this kind of support. And then we have we have some correlations that we've heard from the Prevention Coalition about the amount of businesses and its impact possibly on our youth. So I don't see anything unreasonable about this. I think it's many, majority of communities have done this, and I think it's a reasonable cap. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Councillor Mayari, for your introduction and your hard work on this. And just to jump in to say, when we were looking at referring this conversation to committees a while ago, there was a request to have an ordinance in front of us to be studying. And one of my hesitations with that was, whatever is in front of us, we're going to jump right into the weed of the number. Oh, I didn't mean to be a pun there, but we would jump right down deep into the weeds and focus on the number, and the conversation would be there. And I felt like it was important that we have the big picture conversation. And I still think that that's the important thing to keep in mind here. We have city council committees that can look at this and vet this, and truth be told, 9 minds working together. I'm not entirely sure where we'll go with this, but this is something that feels like a conversation in the work for the council and for the committees to be able to look at this and consider now that there is a proposal in front of us. I know several years ago, prior to us having any retail cannabis establishments in Northampton, there was a proposal to cap, and that proposal was at 10. I believe the vote was 5-4, if I'm correct. It was a close vote not to cap the number of retail establishments in Northampton, with the belief that the market would sort itself out. And, we did see a business close this week. I'm sorry for the people who've invested, their time and money and hopes into that. And as Councillor Mayori alluded to, she did talk with owners of some establishments who did agree that they would welcome a cap. And in addition, hearing from folks from Spiffy, as well as from our own Health and Human Services Department, and that was in our City Services Committee meeting, felt compelling. And we heard from members of the community who asked us to reconsider a cap, and it feels valuable that we as a council look at this and consider it. Now that we have retail cannabis establishments in Northampton, we've heard a call from some of the community to look at it again and to consider capping. And, I welcome my colleagues' input on this as well.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes, I want to echo what Councillor Foster is presenting. And also, I had talked with Councillor Rachel Moyer several months ago. The calls that I received was unbelievable. And even now, I'm still getting some calls starting about capping. And I think at the 12th is reasonable. And my family is a business people anyways. And I know what it's like when you're running a business. We have Councillor Jarrett also, who's a co-owner of a business. And it's a big responsibility. And this is not to put any business out. What we're doing is trying to make it equal here because of so many voices in the city who have asked for us to put a cap on it. And I feel that I want to respect that. And like I just stated, I have already, and you councilors probably have already got some emails coming in about reminding us about placing a cap. So I don't have a problem with the 12. And even we had a meeting with the mayor, us councilors, a couple of weeks ago. And we heard what she was saying to us. And I think Karen Foster, she put a lot of language into this, and Rachel did too. And I respect what the mayor was saying to us. It's money for the city. We understand that. But the voices of the people who live here have been speaking. And I value that. And I hear them. And like I said, I'm proud to support this. And I'd like it to see to go to different committees. Because I think that is extremely important. Counselors working together to make something very valuable for everybody here in the city. And I think the whole thing is the education part of it. We heard from professionals, we've heard from the Board of Health also of placing a cap. In the schools, we heard to go ahead and place that cap. So, like I said, I think this should go to committees. And as far as the committees, I'm not sure because we've had meetings in committees with this, but whatever counselors want to do, I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome.
Counselor Jarrett.
Thank you, counselors, for introducing this ordinance. I think we'll get to have a lot of robust discussion about it. I'm glad you've set us on that. I have some questions which I don't necessarily need to be answered tonight. I'm just going to throw them out there. But for probably when we're going into committees, we can delve into it. So when I see the exception for a social equity applicant, and I read through, what that means on the state's website, first thing comes to is, could a social equity applicant do the work of starting a store, open it, and then turn around and sell it to someone else? And could they be funded by, a corporate entity that is essentially using them as a front, and then then they turn it over, and of course the social equity applicant would get money from that, we hope, but then would no longer be involved, and then wouldn't have the benefits, of course, of that. But so I guess I'm wondering if it's adding in the social equity restriction, or simply doesn't actually make it a cap at all because of that. But I don't know how it all works in detail, so that's a question I'd be interested to know the answer to as we go through the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then there was a previous version of this ordinance that was put on then withdrawn, and I saw it capped it a little bit lower at 10, and then it was tied to whether a host community agreement had been signed rather than a signed lease. And I was just curious about those changes, if you could speak to those at all.
Yeah, okay.
Any of the sponsors feel?
Yeah, I was gonna, right, so after talking to Amy Cahalan at DNA, and I actually spoke to Pat Goggins as well, who's one of my constituents, it became clear that there might be, we really didn't want to discourage budding businesses that have already put a significant amount of time into opening here. It's been really eye-opening. I knew a little bit about the process, but talking to the businesses, I've learned about really what a long and arduous journey it is, and how it takes years to really establish these businesses. So what happens is that, the host community agreement is one of the last, part of the process. So it doesn't really capture the, possibly years of investment and financial investment in our community in good faith that a business might have already put in. So that's why we changed it to kind of to honor those who've already come to Northampton in good faith and start a business.
Right.
I don't know, the number didn't seem very high. It was one or two that I could find that might, have gotten to the, gotten through the process of paying, opting in and paying rent for, you know, a couple of years before and not yet gotten their host or community agreement. I don't think it's a large number, but I also really wanted to honor those businesses. And that's why we have that change. And it also, I just want to say the other point, and we can maybe, you know, this is something we can get into, and we will in our in more in depth. But you know, with the establishment of the state social equity trust fund, it seemed like it didn't quite seem right to me to then cap and close down, you know, businesses here, just as this new opportunity existed for finally, you know, encouraging more formally social equity business owners. So hence an exemption. And I think we can look at that process with the trust fund and, you know, the state level process to inform some of your questions.
Great, thank you. So the number 12 is the current number of open, well, except one's closing, so it'll be down to 11, but, and that was the number there. Okay.
That was why the change there. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Moulton.
Thank you. So Councillor Jarrett raised a very good question in his first remarks about the possibility of a social equity applicant essentially fronting for a large corporation. And I sat through a Mass Municipal Association webinar last month about the new state law and how it affects a lot of aspects of the licensing of cannabis establishments, including the social equity part of it. And I believe that before a license could be transferred, it would have to go through the Cannabis Control Commission. So I think that would be a place that that might prevent that kind of transfer. Anyway, that's something for us to explore further. I, like most, if not all of my colleagues, sat through several hours of testimony before, I believe it was 3 subcommittees of the council on this topic. And while I appreciate that the market to some extent will sort itself out for the commercial aspect of this, what the market's not addressing is the testimony that we heard about the impact on youth. And I feel that I've heard enough about the number and the density of retail establishments and how that's affecting youth use of marijuana, that it warrants further discussion, further deliberation by us. And I too thank the sponsors for affording us that opportunity. And I'm all very supportive of sending this on for further consideration in council committees.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to just reiterate what Councillor I'm sorry, I didn't wait to be called
Go
on.
ahead.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Councillor Newman.
But reiterate what Councillor Foster had said, which is, you know, it's when we first started unpacking the idea of a cap in our committees, it'd be so easy to get overwhelmed with the complexities and the nuances. And so we really are looking to our fellow councilors more than I think any other ordinance to kind of look at this together in a concrete way. I think if we didn't do this, this would be a lingering question that would continue. And so I'm very much looking forward to hearing, hearing your ideas, your thoughts, and your questions, because they're all very good. They're all very good ones. And we knew that, this would be, we knew that there might be tweaking and there might be more conversation, but we felt we needed to put something concrete forward for the community and for, to be able to speak with you all.
So
I'm sorry.
So I'm going to hop in here in that since it is a proposed ordinance, that it does need to go to legislative matters, and that and I'm fine with it going there. I'm not sure that our committees have actually already spent a lot of time on this topic, and that and I think that counselors have we've had ample opportunity to kind of figure out where we're going to land around a cap, and around this, there's been different proposed numbers maybe, but the number here is 12, and that but I think we can wrap our heads around that. I think so. I'm fine with it going to legislative matters. If council would like to send it to other committees, I'll entertain that, but I'm not sure that we want to do that. We've done a lot of outreach and discussion already. I think that the testimony of the Prevention Coalition is probably the most compelling around all of this. Yeah. However, I'm not. I find that the data that's been provided for the data over the last few years since 2019, it's not consistent, and that the cases being made of numbers jumping in other communities and going down, and ours is, where us in East Hampton are shooting through the roof. I'm not sure that data is correct, and that although I will say this, and this is really important. I want everybody to hear that cannabis can have a really bad effect on people. There's people out there who can become addicted to it. There's people who, when they smoke weed, they become psychotic. Yep. There are people who this affects terribly. And there are other people who use cannabis and other things happen. They feel good. They feel pain going away. There's a whole range of things that go on for folks. And I don't want to do like the high times, everything is great about weed, that there is definitely negative impacts and risks that now that we have legal cannabis in our community. But at the same time, I think that I think that the way that the cannabis retailers have been characterized as the problem of what's going on with our youth is really unfair. They're the most regulated aspect of cannabis use that goes on in our community, and that I'm not a big fan of using weed myself, but that I think that the characterization of being drug pushers and things like that's been really unfortunate. So anyway, I have more I can say about this, but I do think that we don't want to. I'm not comfortable sending it back out to committee, so we have more committees having nice long meetings. I think we all know where we stand on this. It going to legislative matters and having LM poke around at all of the different aspects, particularly around the social equity piece and really sussing out what the cap actually means. I think that's a great idea, but I think that's the one place where I think it would go. We've done a lot of work, so I don't think we need to repeat it. Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Councillor Nash. And I personally, as a sponsor, I'm fine if it just goes to legislative matters. I want to be a little bit careful because I think this has happened a lot in this discussion, that a proposal for a cap, which is responding to the idea of, in particular, as we've heard, yes, it's correlational, but data around youth substance use has to do with the sort of repeated exposure and normalizing of cannabis. But I would hate to see this ordinance be viewed as a referendum on cannabis use. Where Northampton is a community that supported legalization, and I, as a sponsor, am not viewing this as any kind of referendum on the businesses that are operating in our community. It's an attempt to respond to the concerns we're hearing from our health department and from the people who are the experts on youth use. And so this is a response to that finite piece of it, and not any attempt at the larger picture there.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes, I agree about it, just sending it to legislative matters, but I want to echo what Councilor Foster stated. It's not a referendum against cannabis use at all. And I'm glad she came out with that, because we need to clear this, that this is not what that's all about. So I'm going by what I've heard from the schools, professionals right down the line, and also continuously getting emails now reminding us to place a cap. They're not saying to close down businesses or anything like that. I don't mind if there's marijuana shops here in the city, but I think on capping is what we should be doing here. I think that residents have the rights to say what they would like in our city. And that's what we're councilors for, to sit down and work together. That's where the value is, to try to come to a compromise and do what we're supposed to do.
Councillor Maori.
Yeah, just to add, yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, this is not an anti-cannabis retail ordinance at all. In fact, it's the opposite. This is a way to concretely support our existing businesses. We do with other industries in our city. Why are we not supporting our local cannabis retail? And I also, but I didn't really want to bring up any kind of ordinance until we named the national problem, the state problem, and a city problem, of equity, social equity. And there's nothing perfect going on here, but I think it's a conversation we need to have. And frankly, for me, if there are going to be more businesses opening, at least what it could bring to kind of, tilt the scales towards something that feels more worth it for our community, we could at least be trying to align it with our community values. And so that's how this came about. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moulton.
I move that we send this to legislative matters.
Second.
Okay, motion to send this proposal to legislative matters. Motion made by Councillor Moulton, seconded by Councillor Maori. Any discussion? Well, I have a question. When would that legislative matters meeting be?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Councillor Jarrett.
January 9th. And that would then, assuming we make a decision, a recommendation at that meeting, we would then discuss it on January 19th, our second meeting in January, or at full council. I mean, we would vote on it.
Thank you.
So the meeting's on the 9th, correct?
Yes, 5 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Well, I want to thank the councilors for introducing a juicy topic, and and we will have at it. It's going to legislative. It sounds like it's going to go to legislative matters. And Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Elkins.
Oh, she can't unmute,
Oh.
but she's giving a thumbs up.
Oh, and that was my fault too. I told her I was gonna, okay. Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Barrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes,
and Counselor Perry.
Yes.
okay. All right, we did that one, we did that one. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, well, all right, we're kind of in the home stretch here. All right, now we're up to, Laura, this doesn't even have a number, does it? Item C, 3-year review of Chapter 290, Article 1, use of face recognition systems by municipal agencies, officers, and employees. So this is our facial recognition technology and broader surveillance discussion. Let's see, that was adopted back in 2019. It's been referred to city services, community resources, legislative matters, discussed by joint city service and legislative matters committee. No action taken back on May 2nd. City services continued discussion. No vote was taken, but consensus reached to recommend no change at this time, but to change provision for initial 3-year review to regular 3-year review. Community resources voted to recommend no change to the ordinance and no further automatic review. So there's something to discuss there. And it's really brief. I'll just read what we have here. It shall be unlawful for any city official to expend any city resources to obtain, retain, access, or use any face surveillance system. So this is a review we have no clear action here. It's a review, and counselors, it's on the table as to your thoughts on this and where you want to go with this. Counselor Foster.
Happy to kick it off. I know as city services and the note here, we had reached consensus at the meeting to recommend another review in 3 years. After that meeting, I did hear from our friends at ACLU recommending that we don't necessarily need that because it is that we have an ordinance review process. So I just wanted to kick it off by saying that I would be fine with the ordinance standing as is. I don't have strong feelings about requiring a review at a set period of time.
Counselor Labarge is distracting me with her flashing. Her flashing lights for those without video. Counselor Elkins and then Counselor Jarrett.
I guess I just would, and thank you, Counselor Foster, for inserting that sort of note going forward. I have to say that it seems like that this, and I wasn't on the council when this was originally passed, but it seems like it's working as intended. It's the discussion and consideration of the issues behind this have certainly come into play and been considered as we've considered other related things. So I just want to sort of commend past council that debated this and passed it. And I think it was an important measure to pass, and it's something certainly that we want going forward. But I also think that we already have in place, as Counselor Foster said, some
reasonable ways to revisit ordinances. Well, frankly, we can revisit ordinances anytime we want to. So I think it was wise to put in this review opportunity, and I know we've heard in some different contexts more about this ordinance even since I've been on the council.
Recording stopped.
Hey, was that personal? Was I going on?
Recording in progress.
What happened?
So I just want to say that, like, I think it's an excellent ordinance. I'm glad it's in place. It's clearly working as intended, and maybe even more significantly, it is something we're keeping in mind as we're having discussions about other related things. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know that we have anything in particular to vote on, but if there's any sort of need to remove or thought, there's not an ongoing review provision, and I don't think under the circumstances there's a need for to add one under the circumstances. But kudos to the council to pass this and the mayor that signed it, and
Right.
let's keep our eye on the ball on this important issue.
Councilor Maori. Oh, hold it. I think Councilor Jarrett was next, then Councilor Maori, right?
I believe so.
Okay, go, Councilor Jarrett. I'm getting a little tired. I forget the order. And then Councilor Maori.
Yeah. So I agree with the councilors who have spoken. There's we have the 5-year review of ordinances that happens every 5 years. I believe it's in the years that end in 0 and 5. So that means in 3 years, we will be reviewing ordinances again. The only cleanup would be perhaps to remove the thing that says 3 years from the month of enactment of this article. I think it's not going to hurt anything to leave it there, and that's the sort of thing that we often clean up during the every 5-year review.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I agree that I think that it's the kind of ordinance that I can imagine it coming up again and us having to actually amend or bring up the issue again. But I think what I see happening is new technologies being suggested or new systems being suggested, and then we're back here. I mean, there's no. I'm just noticing that, for example, some neighboring towns and cities starting to use body cameras on their PD, and to me, that's not that's something that could in my view fall under this ordinance. So just as policies change, we should really do need to, as Councilor Elkin say, we need to kind of keep this in mind. But I think that's an okay way to do it, to wait for, since we seem to support the ordinance and be, as is, to just, refer back to it when new issues arise, and kind of do it that way at this point, as opposed to a triggered review. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Well, I'll weigh in here. I think we had some. I think council did really great work on this. This came out of the dash cam. We tied this in with the dash cam discussion to really start an early. We had a process in place to start digging into surveillance in a broader way that was triggered by this particular review, and I think we did our homework around this, and we met what was being asked of us, and I think that counselors are well aware of that. As technology is moving extremely fast, and that 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 whatever we write in there today, let's watch out for this, that something else is going to pop up in the next few years that we didn't expect. And so that I think the vigilance that we've brought to the table here and will continue to do in the future is enough. And I'm also wondering if the mayor wanted to say something, as I believe she was the original sponsor. Is this how you envisioned the review?
It is a little bit how I envision the review. I appreciate how in-depth and seriously the council has taken this review, and appreciate the discussion around it, and also appreciated the appreciation for the original ordinance. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So we can go around and make sure all the councilors weigh in, or that we don't, because we don't have a motion or a vote. But if people are satisfied, we've completed our review. I'm compelled to go for a vote, but that's not required here. How about this? Somebody say, hey, wait, don't go on to the next thing. I think we've completed this discussion. Okay. All right. Thank you, counselors. All right. Now on to the next thing. And thanks to everybody for all their work on this. Next up is, okay, now we're down to this City Council Select Committees to study barriers, request for extension of deadline. So the Select Committee, which it actually got off to a late start than expected, and it's of late it's really hit its stride, and the committee has asked us to consider an extension until, where is it, April? Am I not seeing it here?
15th.
I'm sorry, what?
Is that the deadline, right?
Yeah.
Of 2023.
All right.
It's April 15th.
Okay. And you know what? There are two counselors on the select committee, and I'm going to encourage them to speak to this extension.
There you go.
Counselor Perry.
Also, the chair is here, Javier. So I don't know if Javier.
Oh, okay.
Speak on this.
Oh, that's Javier. Oh, I just see the figure with the moon. So should we get, so do I need a motion to give Javier permission to speak?
Move
Let's
to
go.
recognize Javier Luengo-Garita.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Maori to recognize Javier Luengo-Garita. I have to look at your name, Javier, whenever, so I pronounce it right. And that, so we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Okay, Laura, roll call to recognize Javier.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
and Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay. Javier, let me unmute you and you can now speak. There you go. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
25 minutes before 11 p.m. Congratulations. I see you working hard. And just a quick thing, I saw Bill Dwight around. Bill with Alisa Klein and Gina Luis were the regional sponsors of the facial surveillance. And they did a incredible, magnificent work when this passed the first time. And I just want to mention that. Anyway, so I have two members here who are city council members too, which is Councilor Perry and Councilor Gore. Councilor Gore is my vice chair of the select committee. And the select committee is working really well. Right now, we are finishing a form which is gonna collect testimonies. It's a form that has different ways to approach it, depending if you are a chair or a vice chair of a standing city committee or commission, or if you have applied but never served, or if you're a regular member of a committee. And we did it in that way because the questions that you're asking to the people in those different roles are quite different. The level of work that a chair of a vice chair is different than a regular member. Also, the kind of responsibilities that from one kind of commission to the next one is extremely different when you are in an advisory commission compared with a technical commission. So we're being really thoughtful about that. And also we're being really thoughtful in the way how we are approaching the community using a form that is going to be widely available. And also we are planning, in fact, Councilor Perry is in charge with one of our members to, in the upcoming weeks, to plan a public forum to be able to bring the community together in an accessible time and manner for us to talk to us and about their experiences and what are their concerns, what are the positive things that we're seeing across the city in relation to accessibility of serving in commissions, select committees, and advisory boards. We have a couple little hiccups at the beginning with technology. So we certainly we wouldn't be able to, we were not able to move forward a couple of meetings because of technology. That has been fixed, I think, and at this point I want to say deep thank you to Council President Natch and Vice President Foster. Your support has been key for the work of the select committee. The work wouldn't be possible with your support. And I would invite Councilor Perry and Councilor Gore to add anything that if I'm missing something. And for the time being, we're asking for an extension to April 15, 2023, which involves the deployment of the form, involves a public community hearing for a public speaking event, plus the writing of the report.
Thank you, Javier, for the kind words and for all of your work.
Absolutely.
And then, and I think you were recognizing Councilor Gore
Yeah.
and Perry. Yeah.
Javier summed it up perfectly. We're working on the form and we're gonna have listening sessions in the coming year. So that's why we are asking for an extension.
I'd like to say great work, and I'd like to move that we grant this requested extension.
Second.
Okay. All right, motion made by Councilor Elkins, seconded by Councilor Jarrett to grant the extension. So I see Councilor Jarrett and then Councilor Foster.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind folks that this Monday at the Community Resources meeting, there will be an update from the Select Committee. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, Councilor Foster.
Yeah, just wanted to thank my colleagues who are serving on the committee as well, Councilor Gore and Councilor Perry and Javier, for your work. Of course, I'm supportive of an extension. I'm grateful at all the different angles that you're looking at this question with, and sticking with some of the technological troubles in the beginning and your dedication. And I'm just really grateful for your thoughtfulness and attentiveness to this, and look forward to having, some ways that we can more meaningfully help a wider variety of our community participate in public service moving forward. And, your work is absolutely critical to that. So thank you.
Councilor Maori.
Yes, I just feel like this is a particularly pivotal select committee, and you need a wide berth. And I think it's a lot. These things are a lot of work, just from my limited experience on a select committee. And they grow. And if you're doing them right, you grow more work. So so I'm really grateful for your own perseverance and for your service. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, I can't thank the committee enough. And I also want to thank Jana White, who just stepped down, who's going to be stepping down the end of the month from the committee, for her work on it. And I've spoken with Javier about this, and he doesn't feel the need to fill that empty seat on the committee, as that it would take too long to get somebody up to speed, and they're ready to go. And but I just wanted to thank Jana for the work she's done. So all right, any more discussion on this motion to extend until April 15th? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
and Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Okay, the select committee now has their deadline extended until April 15th. And Javier, anything I can help to help meet that goal, you let me know. And when you're doing the outreach meeting, let the counselors know, and we'll be working all of our channels to drive people to be part of the discussion.
Absolutely. And I forgot to say something. That's a correlation of my comment that it's close to, we're a little more than an hour away from midnight. The work from Councilor Perry and Councilor Gore, it has been amazing. The commitment, the dedication, the thoughtfulness, and on top of that, knowing that you two are part of the city council working until so late. I'm proud of your work. I'm proud of being colleagues with you within the select committee, and I'm looking forward to what's coming for this next part of our work.
Thank you, Javier, and big thank you right back at you.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking at our agenda, and I think that's it. And Laura, I said 11 and you said 10:30. It's right in the middle. We're both right. So
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Councilor Perry's made a motion to adjourn. Was there a second? Councilor Foster, seconded by Councilor Foster. Laura, roll call on adjourning.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
and Councilor Gore.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned for the holidays.
Woohoo.
Holidays, everybody. Holidays,
Thank you.
Great
Thank
work,
you. Good night.
everybody.
Thank you, President. Thank you,
And
Director.
we're halfway through
Good
this
night.